Okay, here we are with chapter 6, and finally I'm reading to you again. I'm sorry for the gap in that. First of all, let's look closely at the images on this page. So, we have got lots and lots of people. There's our air balloon. Lots and lots of people standing on balconies. See them? And they've all come to watch the arrival of the racers for the famous race to the frozen north. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to read to you the first part of this chapter, and then you're going to retell it as if you are one of the people that's come to watch. They're called the spectators. So I don't mind if you want to be this person up here on the roof, maybe that child there sitting on the balustrades, maybe somebody else from further down, and you're going to be describing in that person's opinion what you see happening here at the race meet. So let's find out about chapter 6. The town of Snowdovia was built in the same style as the Po of Ice on stilted platforms along the fjord edge. But unlike the Po of Ice, it was full of life and bustle. People lined the balconies outside their homes to watch as the adventurers who meant to race to the top of the world came sledding into their fjord. From all over the north they came. True winter had not arrived completely without warning. Not for people who knew what to look for. Not for people who had been eagerly waiting for the first flake of magical snow to fall. They had all been preparing for weeks, and now that the ice had come, they were ready. At Limpettville Institute of Technology, Professor Shackleton-Jones had known about the coming winter by, let's quickly look at him first, here he is, by the excited way the northern lights made his particle detectors ping. He was determined to reach the top of the world using the power of science. He and his robot companion Snowbot swept into Snowdovia on a carbon fibre sled so strong and lightweight that it was barely there at all. Let's get another look at that picture. On a lonely island not far from Snowdovia, Helga Hammerfest had learned of the big freeze by watching the flight of geese and the way the spiders spun their cobwebs. She had readied her sled and harnessed up her team. No dogs for Helga, just her 2 pet polar bears, Snowdrop and Slush Puppy. She was the local favourite, so she got an extra big cheer when her snow bears came lumbering up to the start line. Sir Basil Sprout Dumpling heard of the big freeze from his butler, Sideplate, who had been keeping watch on the weather. Zoom out. Those are Helga's polars. Here is Sir Basil. Let's just recap that, Sideplate had been keeping watch on the weather forecasts. 10 minutes later, they were at the airport, loading Sir Basil's sled and pedigree dog team aboard an aeroplane Sir Basil's father had been the first to reach the top of the world last time true winter came. He had met the Snow Father and had his wish granted, which was to be ridiculously rich. He had gone back to England with a fortune in rubies, sapphires and diamonds, but Sir Basil had spent it all. "If we don't beat these riffraffs to the pole, Sideplate," he said as they drew up to the starting line, "I shall have to sell off the old stately home. I mean to win this race, even if I have to cheat like an absolute bounder." There they are. "Yes, Sir Basil," said Sideplate sadly, holding his bowler hat on tight and wishing he had worn warmer underwear. "But if I may say so, Sir Basil, I do hope cheating won't be necessary." Sir Basil wasn't listening. "I say," he cried, for the pink sled that had just pulled up next to him held none other than Mitzi von Prim, most glamorous of all racers. How embarrassed her team of huskies looked, clipped like poodles and dyed pink to match Mitzi's stylish racing outfit. Those 4 were not the only entrants for the race. There were dozens of others. Modern sleds with sat-navs and central heating, age-old sleds of wood and bone, a sled folded out of stiff paper by an origami master from Japan, and an inflatable sled advertising "Poo be gone, poop scoops." There was even a sled crewed by 2 ladies who were doing the race for charity, dressed as a pantomime zebra. It took quite a while to get them all sorted out and arranged along the starting line. The overexcited dogs woofed and yapped and howled and sniffed each other's bottoms and started fights. The overexcited race marshals skated to and fro, checking that nobody was cheating, and no dog or polar bear had its nose over the line. They had almost finished when the chief marshal was just cleaning the snow out of her starting pistol and getting ready to fire it when people standing near the fjord's end began to shout, "Wait, wait, here comes another." A ripple of applause spread along the fjord side as the late arrival headed for the starting line. "That looks like young Seeker in her grandpa's old sled," said the chief marshal, scraping away the ice that had formed on the lenses of her binoculars. "But what are those little woolly things pulling it?" They look like 66 pugs," said her assistant. "Pugs?" said the chief marshal. "Pugs?" said the other racers, turning to stare as Seeker steered the old sled into a gap between Sir Basil and Mitzi von Prims, and Shen reined in the eager little dogs. "I say," complained Sir Basil, as the marshals came skating over to take the name of the new arrival. "They've got 66 dogs. That's against the rules." "And those dogs are wearing woolly jumpers," agreed Mitzi. "I'm not sure that's allowed." But Helga Hammerfest, whose sled was on the other side of Mitzi's, said, "Well, dear, your huskies are dyed pink and have ribbons in their fur. I don't think you'll find that mentioned in the rule book either." Mitzi blushed, and her poor pink dogs all hung their heads in shame. "And Shackleton Jones's sled is pulled by robot dogs," Helga pointed out. "These are Woofotrons 2000, my very latest invention," said Shackleton Jones proudly. "And those 66 little dogs are each about 1/10 of the size of one of yours, Sir Basil," Helga went on. "And you've got 8, so you've got more power than these youngsters." "What's the matter? Afraid that smart sled of yours won't be as fast as their antique?" "Of course not," said Sir Basil. But he didn't say... Oops, can you see? There we go. But he didn't say it very loudly because Helga was half as tall again as him and twice as wide, and he didn't fancy getting into an argument with her. Also, her polar bears kept giving him very nasty looks. So the chief marshal wrote Shen and Seeker's names on her clipboard and stepped into the little balloon that was waiting on the fjord side to carry her up above the starting line. Shen and Seeker had left the Purvice in a terrible hurry, having quickly packed the sled with supplies for themselves and the pugs. All the way to Snowdovia, they had been worrying that they would be too late. Now Seeker turned to Shen and beamed, "We did it!" Shen was not so sure. They were in the race, but that was only the beginning. How could they hope to win it when the other sleds looked so speedy? And the other dogs so big and strong. Still, it would be something just to start. The sound of all the dogs filled the frosty air and made him feel eager to be off. He waved at Helga and said, "Thank you, sir." "She's a lady," hissed Seeker. "Is she?" asked Shen. "I am," said Helga Hammerfest, "but don't worry. I'm always getting mistaken for a man." "On account of my size and also my beard. Most ladies don't care for beards, but I find mine helps to keep my chin warm in the frozen north. You should try growing yours, Miss Mitzi." Mitzi von Prim shuddered. "My fur-lined racing coat is all I need to keep me warm," she said. "It's by a very good designer, you know." The chief marshal interrupted, drifting above them in her balloon and shouting through a huge megaphone. Her words boomed across the ice and broken bits of them came bouncing back from the frozen hillsides. "Welcome to the Great Northern Race. Now you all know the course. North through the night forest. then over Kraken Deep, and then by whatever route you want to the palace at the top of the world. Good luck! Give our regards to the Snow Father, and may the best sled win. There she is. Then she fired her starting pistol. The racers cracked their whips and hollered at their dogs, and the sled set off, rushing across the ice. So they all go. So now remember, I've asked you to be one of the characters left here on the balconies. You've watched all those people arrive, and now the end of your bit of writing will be them leaving the fjord, setting off with the racers. Okay?